Okay, hello everybody. It's Game Dev Dad again, and I thought that I would do a video that's actually has to do with development. So what I'm going to do today is just a simple example of how to use the Vuforia Augmented Reality library and get frame markers working. So I noticed that the Vuforia library actually has a lot of examples to get stuff working, but they don't really have a lot of tutorials on how to do things from scratch. So I just wanted to do something very basic on how to use Unity and Vuforia to get frame markers going, so that you can put a 3D model onto a frame marker position. So if you don't know what Vuforia is, let me just go. It's a Qualcomm product, and it's basically an augmented reality library that works with iOS and Android, perhaps some other platforms too. But I think if you go to developer.vuforia.com, then you can create an account here. And I think I already have an account. And then here you can go to downloads, and in downloads you can find the, I'm going to be using the Unity extension here. So they have, you're going to have to accept the license agreement. So they have the release version 4.2 SDK here. They also have a beta version here if you wanted to try to do some dual screen stereoscopic stuff with some of the digital eyewear that's available, such as the Samsung VR or the Oculus Rift. They have a version of the library here. So I've already downloaded this extension. I'm basically going to start from scratch in Unity, put together a quick project without using anything external other than this, and then generate my own frame marker instead of using the sample code, because the sample code's a little bit bloated, and sometimes I like to just start from scratch. So I think that other people might be like that as well. Okay, so let's get started. Here's Unity 5. I'm just going to make a new project called Frame Marker Tutorial, and I'm going to put it in this directory here. So create product or create project. Okay, so I have basically a blank project here with a main camera and a thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I usually like to create a separate folder for the stuff that I'm going to be doing. So I'm just going to make a Jamesy game folders, and I prefix it with an underscore just so that it stays up at the top of this list. This list is alphabetical, so it's always going to be at the top. So it's just something I do to organize my stuff. Then I'm going to create a folder called scenes, and then inside scenes, I'm going to just save this scene. Sorry, Control S is what I'm using to save, but you can also use save scene up here. And then inside here, inside scenes, I'm just going to call this, let's call it the frame marker scene. Okay, so now basically I have inside scenes frame marker scene. Up here it tells me that that's the scene. That's the scene I'm actually in right here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and then I'm going to navigate to my AR Vuforia folder, plugins. This is where I've downloaded the 4.2.3 beta library. I actually downloaded the beta library. This should have the exact same tutorial for the other library, but I want to continue on with some virtual reality stuff or stereoscopic augmented reality after this. So I downloaded the beta package. Okay, so you say open. I'm sure you guys have all imported stuff before. You get the importing package dialog that tells you all of the stuff that's in here. So Vuforia, or this library, actually doesn't do a great job at organizing the stuff. So you're going to get an editor folder, a plugins folder, and then the Qualcomm Augmented Reality folder, a couple other files as well in here, license and stuff like that. So this is all going to come in. This is another reason why I created that James E. Games folder, so that I could just keep my stuff separate from this stuff, and so I'll know where my stuff is. So you just push import. It'll import the assets. And that doesn't take too long. So now you basically will have exactly what I showed you: editor, plugins, Qualcomm Augmented Reality, and streaming assets. There's nothing actually in streaming assets yet, so most of the stuff is going to be in Qualcomm Augmented Reality. So to get started, if you look in Qualcomm Augmented Reality in prefabs, you will have some prefabs, and one of them that's important is called this AR camera, which is the augmented reality camera. So I'm going to just go here and delete the main camera from the scene. I have one directional light in the scene. I'm going to put it, kind of orient my thing so that X is to the right and Y is up, just like a normal Cartesian plane. I'm going to throw this thing up at 10 meters high, just so that I kind of have an idea of basic scene here. And then I'm going to grab this AR camera prefab and throw it in there. So I'll just move the directional light down. So now AR camera is in my scene. And these are all of the different scripts that are associated with the AR camera that are going to be important for making these augmented reality programs. A lot of these aren't actually needed for frame markers, because frame markers are kind of built in to the library, so you don't need to use a data set here. You would use that for the pictures and stuff like that, but you don't need that for here. So that's another reason that I wanted to do this simple frame marker example. Okay, so I'll put the license key in later, and some of these settings here I'm just going to leave at default. So basically my camera device mode, I'm going to set it default. You can also set it to optimize for quality, optimize for speed. This is of course the webcam view that you'll get. And then the camera direction, you can actually pick whether you want the front facing or back facing camera. I'll just leave it at default. And then whether you want a mirror and where the world center is. So it's basically setting the world center here to be the first target that it tracks. Camera offsets, camera scale, it's not really needed for this. Once we get into stereoscopic stuff, then of course we'll set those appropriately. So really you just leave everything here. You'll notice that if I push play right now, I should get an error message that's saying that I'm missing my app key. There's my son bugging me as usual, and then you close. Okay, so I'll go to Vuforia website, and if you look into, I think it's the develop directory here, you'll see licenses for things that you've created. So, I've created a license keys for thing. So I'm just going to grab one of the license keys that I've created. Oh, jeez, I don't know what's happening now. Did I lose internet? Oh, there's one. Okay, so I'll just grab this license key here, copy and paste it, and you put it in this thing. And now that it's in there, you can save that. And once you play now, I should get a lovely video of me tired late at night. Okay, so the whole thing is with augmented reality that you want a 3D object, and then you find some sort of marker, and then when you hold the marker up, the computer vision recognizes the marker and will put a 3D object on there. So of course we don't have a frame marker in the scene, and we don't have a 3D object, so nothing's really happening right now. So we're going to do that right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make a very simple 3D object so that you guys can just be wowed by my amazing modeling skills. So here I'll just make a capsule. So here's a nice little capsule, which will be the bottom of the body of the character. Reset it to origin position here, and then let's just maybe scale it so it's a little bit taller, and then we'll move it up. So there it is. So we've got the body of our guy. Let's go and we'll make a, I'm going to make a materials folder here. Call call it materials. And then inside materials, I'll create a new material. And let's call it the purple material. Let's just make it a simple unlit color. And then in here, I'll just pick a purple color. All right. That's kind of, let's not make it unlit. Let's make it, let's make it just standard with purple. So we have some light. Then we'll drop that color onto our body. So now we have this purple guy. We'll call this the body of our guy. And then just so that we have some idea of orientation, let's give him a nose. So I'll just use Option D or Command D, or you can use Edit Duplicate. Yeah, Command D. So Edit Duplicate will just duplicate the selected object. So I have another instance of body here, and I'll call this nose now. And then the nose is going to be smaller, so I'll just set it like 0.5, 1, and 0.5. And then now you'll see that I have this little smaller thing here. And then actually maybe I'll make it 0.5 here as well. So I got a small little nose. Now let's rotate it. Let's rotate it about, maybe it's 90 degrees amongst its z-axis, z-axis. I'm actually Canadian, so Z would be what I would say natively. And then we'll just position the nose somewhere on the body here. And then you can, of course, clean up these numbers. So minus 0.5, 3, 0. So now we have a nose on this guy. We can move him out a little bit more. So minus 0.6. Okay, so let's see where this nose is actually right now pointing. So that we have, let's actually move them to the other side. So we'll make it so that the nose is pointing out the positive x-axis. So that'll just be changing this to 0.7. So now I'm just using this for orientation so that we can, kind of make sure that the marker is orienting our 3D model in the proper way. So to make this hierarchy, I'm just going to take the nose now and drag it onto the body. So now I have a body with a nose that's all one object that can be moved around together. Okay, so that's very exciting. My modeling skills are amazing. My son taught me everything he knows about modeling from Minecraft. And okay, so now the whole thing is to get a marker and to place this object on the marker. So if you look back in Qualcomm here in prefabs, there is a default, I think there's a frame marker here. So you can just drag the frame marker into our scene. And I have no idea why Qualcomm uses such huge scales. I think maybe they're using 1 inch equals 1 unit or something, but basically this is 60 units, which Unity wants a unit to be 1 meter. So I'll just going to get this down to, 1 by 1 by 1, which would mean that it's a 1 meter object. This guy's pretty big. Let's actually change it to 2. Okay, maybe even 3. There we go. So say we're using inches then. Let's say this is a 3-inch thing, and then our guy's like he was 2 inches tall, I thought, but that's kind of weird that I scaled him up to 2 here. Maybe he's actually 4. Let me just check that real quick. I'll make a 3D object, a cube, make that in the Y direction 4. So yeah, he looks like he's 4 high. Okay, so 2 must be the radius of this. Okay, so anyway, I have a marker and I have my thing. So one thing you have to do is you have to attach the 3D object that you want. It has to actually be a child of that frame marker. So I'm going to grab my body, I'm going to drag it onto the frame marker. So now my frame marker has the 3D object I want to see actually attached to it. So if I hide my frame marker, I'll hide everything. Okay, if I push play now, when it first starts, the frame marker is not visible in the scene, so it of course will not, it won't show the 3D model. Also, the one I've printed out is this purple one right here. So as I hold that in front of the scene, it will recognize, the camera will recognize it, and it'll place our 3D object on top of the 3D marker. Okay, so if you want to make your own markers, they're actually all included in the package. They're in this editor folder into Qualcomm AR, and there is frame marker textures in here. So the top thing is a zip file. So let me just reveal that in Finder, and then you'll see that it's called frame markers transparent.zip. And inside the zip file is are all 512 possible frame markers. So I have expanded that zip file, or sorry, there it is. So I've decompressed the zip file, and here are all of the 512 frame markers that are included with the kit. So you can you can use as many of these framework markers as you want in your application. So to actually use one of these, let's take, say, number 10 here. So I'll take frame marker number 10, and let me go into Jamesy Games. I'm going to make a directory called, make a folder called textures. Okay, so let's get that frame markers file. We're going to take number 10. Let's put it in there. So, okay, so sorry about that. My son just interrupted me a little bit, and I accidentally pushed the stop video, so I'll have to splice these videos together later. So we're at a point where I wanted to show you how to actually make a frame marker. So here we are in the frame marker directory that comes from the zip file. I was saying there's 512 different frame markers that you can use here, and basically just the patterns around the border are what's recognized by the computer vision algorithm. And there's 512 different combinations of that. And so you can edit the inside so that you can put your logo in there, or you could put, playing card, things like that. So I'm going to use frame marker number 10 here. As you can see, these are very small, 46 by 46 pixels. So the first thing that we want to do for printing purposes, and also in Unity, I'm going to want to make it a power 2 boundary because I'm going to use it as a texture on that frame marker object. So I'm going to first scale that up. Unfortunately, I do not have Photoshop on this computer, so I scaled it up separately on another computer that had Photoshop. And even some of the online photo editors, such as Pixel Editor, don't have the nearest neighbor. No, sorry, the nearest neighbor option for scaling. So if I show you here, let's say I open up that one that we were talking about, frame markers transparent 10. Open that in this Pixlr, so you can see that it's a 46 by 46. They do have the image size option here, so I could just change it to 256 by 256 here, but as you can see, it's using linear interpolation or maybe bilinear filtering, and you get kind of that blur around the edges. So you really want to scale it up and keep the sharpness of it, and that therefore you have to use a nearest neighbor algorithm to do that. So I use Photoshop on the other computer. I scaled it up to 256 by 256. I put it in my Unity folder here, and as you can see, this scaled image has kept its sharp edges because I used the nearest neighbor. I took a screenshot of the, let's see if I have it here somewhere. So here's the screen shot of the actual settings for scaling it up in Photoshop. So as you can see, I set the width and the height to 256 pixels. That gives me a size of about 3.5 inches. The resample image option here is set to nearest neighbor. And then you say OK, and it of course scales it up, preserving the hard edges here. So this is the frame marker 0.png file. You look into, this is in back in Unity. Here's the image that I just showed you that's inside the textures directory, frame marker 010, and it now has that. So let's go here and change the materials. Where's material? So frame marker sample material it's using here. So we're going to make our own material for that. So let's go create. I'm back in Jamesy Games materials. Right click, create material. And I'm going to call this, let's just call this the frame marker material. And this one I will just set as an unlit texture, and then select the texture to be my new frame marker. Okay, so all we want to do now is change this material to use that. So you can either drag it on top like this, and then now I have the new material on there, or you could go into the mesh renderer for here. And it's going to have materials. We have one material on here. It's called a frame marker material. You can drag that material up here, or you can, of course, open this and pick the material you want. I'm sure you guys know how to use Unity, but there's very many ways that you can do that. Okay, so now I have frame marker image for frame marker 10 in here. And then as you can see, there's a marker behavior script that's attached to the marker. And I'm interested in marker ID 10. Okay, so it really doesn't actually matter what you show here. What's important is that this marker ID matches whichever one that you print out. So just to prove to you that you can edit the inside of this, I'm just going to use the online tool here to open up that 256 by 256 image that I made. So that was in Jamesy Games textures. There it is. So 256 by 256 image. Let's just layer a new layer. I want that layer to be behind this layer. And then we can let's put a color in there. So we'll fill it with like, let's make this like an orangey color or something. Okay, so now I've filled it with, maybe I'm not going to pick orange because Qualcomm actually uses orange as their example. So I don't want people to get confused with their sample that using that. Okay, and then let's maybe just put some text in there. This is number 10. So let's change size to 60 or something and make it bold and whatever. Okay, so we have nice text in the middle-ish. Okay, so we have our image, and then let's save that. Okay. So I'm going to save it over the same image. And if we look at this now, hopefully it looks the way we made it. We look inside Jamesy Games textures, and it's updated our scene. Okay, so we now have number 10, and I am going to print out this image so that we can actually do it here. So let's go File, Print. Thank you. And let's just try to scale it. We don't want it that big. So let's just maybe make it about that big on the page and print it. And I will pause and go and pick up that printout and be right back. Okay, I am back. I've printed out this image. Here's a lovely image. The first one I used was image 0. I put a purple background in image 0, so I have an example of image 0 and an example of image 10 here. And so let's see when I push play. Okay, I use image 0, and the object doesn't show up because it's image 0. If I show image 10, hopefully my object does show up. And as you can see, the nose is pointing out to the right side along the x-axis. So the x-axis here, and you can see that the orientation is that it was pointing out towards the let's just use this as reference, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 black dots on the same side of the nose. And if I hold this up, sorry, it's hard to hold up with the cameras. So the 6 black dots are the nose is pointed towards the 6 black dots. So we have the correct orientation. Okay, just to prove to you that the image on here actually doesn't really matter on the frame marker. It's more the marker ID that determines what this pattern is on the outside, at least in the visual display. Let's change that back. Let's just put something stupid on there for the fun of it. Let's see what I have. Actually, let's just go here, change the frame marker material, and select anything. There we go. So even though that is doesn't have the texture for 10, because the ID is 10, it still shows up. So internally, it knows what number 10 is. Okay. And for the same thing, if I want to try with number 0, you would just go to frame marker, change this frame marker ID to 0 there. And when I run that, 10 doesn't show up. But of course 0. Oops, sorry, 0 would show up. Okay, and then lastly, the other good thing about frame markers is that you can, so let's call that one 10. Sorry, put that on 10. Frame marker material. Oh, I changed it here, that's right. So let's put that back on 10 just so we know. And then let's make sure that this is 10 here. And then let's actually call this frame marker 10 so that we don't get confused. Okay, so let's do another example, because one good thing about frame markers is that you can easily track multiple objects. So let's call this one frame marker 0, since I already have that one printed out. Done. And so we have a frame marker 0, and we'll call that one that. But let's change the material for this one back to the frame marker 0 sample. Then let's move this somewhere. Okay, so we now have 2 objects, and then let's change this object a little bit. Let's actually make them a different color, since I don't want to waste some time for you guys watching me model, because I am definitely not a modeler. So we'll call this red material. Okay, and then red material I'm going to change to a different color. And I bet you guys will all be surprised that I'm going to make this red. Okay, put the red material on this fella. And might as well put it on his nose as well. Okay, so we have a red guy and a thing. Let's rotate this guy too, just as an example. So rotate him. Let's do it 45 degrees. So just in default orientation, he'll be a little bit rotated. Actually, I don't even think that would matter because it's going to be depending on how you hold the frame. I could do, actually, rotate this part 45 degrees. There we go. So now the model is actually pointing towards this bottom corner of that one. Okay, so just let's double check so I'm not crazy here. Marker ID 0 is attached to red. Marker ID 10 is attached to purple. All right. So we should be able to hold up both of these. And I know they're glossy and there's light behind me and stuff like that, so I might have to adjust slightly to get to see them. I think it's just the lighting in this room. Yeah, so that's completely not wrong because the red one should not. Oh no, this is 0. So this is the red one, and it's showing up with the nose pointing towards the corner. So that's good. And this is the purple one. So we have multiple objects showing up. Okay, so the next thing is next little test is to build this on, I'll build it onto my iPhone, and we'll do a test on the iPhone next, okay? So, good enough. And then to build on the iPhone, of course, you open up your build settings, player settings. You're going to have to put some company in here. Good old Jamesy Games. The name of this thing is Frame Marker Tutorial. That's good enough. Resolution and presentation. Let's just set it at... Oh, jeez. First, before I even do that, let's we got to switch to iOS. Switch platform. And it's going to have to redo the assets and everything. That was good. You add the current scene so that we have a scene here. And then in player settings, we should be on iPhone. And then let's leave it on auto rotation. Let's just do landscape. And then down in other settings, the important thing is here. Jamesy Games. And I called this the Frame Marker Tutorial. Frame Marker Tutorial version 1. That's it, iPhone. Okay, so we're ready to build. So I will just build there. And then I'm just going to make a folder called builds. And then call it iOS build. Save. And I'll edit this stuff out because you guys don't want to watch this build. Okay, so Unity finished making the build. I opened it up into Xcode. You're just going to push play, and it'll run it on the iPhone. Okay, so it's launching on the iPhone, and I'm actually recording ScreenFlow here. So Frame Marker Tutorial wants to access the camera, of course. And so now the camera has a view of my desk. And here's some frame markers. There's frame marker 0. As you can see, the lighting's a lot better. This computer vision works in areas of more kind of diffuse lighting without a lot of specular and stuff, so it can recognize. So, as I was testing it before, you noticed it was quite hard because of the glossiness of these prints, but because it's down on the desk now, in kind of this more controlled lighting environment, I can actually track things a lot better. Now, of course, when I cover it up, it's gone. So that is it. We've gone basically from scratch. We have made a simple demo that can track multiple 3D objects. Okay, so if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll get back to you, and hopefully I'll be able to do a couple more of these augmented reality and virtual reality coding tutorials as well. Not that we really did any coding in this one, but there you go. Okay, thank you, and please feel free to comment and let me know if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for future videos. Okay, thanks. Bye.